Today we are going to deal with water. And in water, we are going to learn about water pollution. Water pollution. Now, when I'm talking about water pollution, the word pollute, the word pollute means to make something impure or to contaminate. To contaminate or make something impure. Now, today we are learning about water and water pollution. So we are going to see ways in which this water can be contaminated or can be made impure so that people or animals cannot use it. Now, there are several ways in which water is contaminated. Let's look at causes of water pollution. Causes of water pollution. Number one, causes of water pollution. Remember, this water can be polluted in different ways. This water can be polluted in different ways. So many ways, but we are going to highlight a few ways in which this water is polluted. One, we have what we call floods. Floods. Now, what are floods? Floods, it's caused when there is heavy downpour or when there is a lot of rain. Now, when there is a lot of rain, the rain will bring about a lot of water, and this a lot of water will run on the earth's surface. And in the process of running on the earth's surface, it will carry soil particles, and this water will carry soil particles. In the end, the water will become muddy. It will become muddy. And when it becomes muddy, it will be red in color, so to say. And this water will be contaminated. It will be impure, and it will be not good enough for human consumption. And in this, we'll say that the water has been polluted. The water has been polluted. Number two, we have what we call human and animal waste. Human and animal waste. Human and animal waste. Now, animals, most animals, say like cows, goats, when they go to, if you take them to the river for watering, for them to drink water, they end up either urinating or leaving feces in the water. And this one is animal waste. So the animal waste, when they find their way into the water, then that water will be contaminated. Same to human waste. Human waste is not good in water. If it gets its way into water, then the water becomes contaminated, or it becomes impure for human consumption. Nobody is willing to drink water or even use water that has animal urine or animal feces in it to cook, to shower, to bathe, or even to do cleaning because it's already contaminated. And in this, we say that the water that has human or animal waste, this water is polluted. This water is polluted. Number three, we have what we call oil spillage. Oil spillage. Oil spillage. Now, oil spillage, this one is caused by heavy oil tankers or ships that are in the ocean. When they get an accident, the oil will spill over the water. Now remember, the density between the water and the oil, oil is less dense than the water. So in real sense, the oil will float on the water. Now, after floating on the water, it will provide a blanket over the water, meaning that no oxygen can go into the water. No oxygen can enter into the water. Now, in the end, the marine animals, the aquatic animals that live inside the water, will not have enough oxygen to breathe. In the end, they will end up dying. Why? Because this water has oil on it. Now, we say that the water is polluted. It has become impure because it has caused death to aquatic animals. So oil spillage causes water pollution. And that's why we normally say, if you want to kill mosquitoes, what you do, you spill some oil on top of stagnant water in the compound. Actually, what will happen, the oil will cover the water. After covering the water, the mosquitoes, the eggs that were laying mosquitoes will not be able to hatch because they cannot be able to access the oxygen. And eventually they will end up dying. And after death, we'll say that water was contaminated or was impure or the water was polluted because it cannot support life. Number four, we have what we call waste from industries. Now, this waste from industries, you realize that most industries release what we call hazardous waste. And most of them release the waste into rivers because they don't have anywhere to release it. So this hazardous waste, when they go into the river, they pollute the water. You cannot be able to use it. And that's why probably rivers in a country they have more fresh water as compared to rivers in urban setting. Because in towns we have a lot of industries, and these industries, in most cases, they end up releasing their waste into the rivers. And after releasing their waste into the rivers, then they end up contaminating this water and making it impure. Today, in the government, we have a government authority called NEMA. They always give licenses to most factories when they are releasing factories, and this license, you have to stay in how you'll be releasing your waste. So they always advise that you have to treat your waste before releasing it into the water. So treated waste is less hazardous to aquatic animals. But if you do not treat the waste, if you do not treat the industrial waste from the industries, then it will become hazardous to the aquatic animals that live in water. And these aquatic animals, examples include the turtles, the fish, or the animals that live in water, or the animals that live in the water. So it's not all industrial waste from industries. They should not be released into rivers. If they have to be released into rivers, then they should be treated. Treated meaning that they are less hazardous, so they cannot cause any harm to all animals that are in the water. Number five, we have uncontrolled use of farm chemicals. Uncontrolled use of farm chemicals. Uncontrolled use of farm chemicals. Now, what are the farm chemicals I'm talking about? When you're practicing farm practices on the farm, such as use of fertilizer, those farms that are near the rivers, Now, when they move into the river, then it means that the river is polluted. The water in the river will become contaminated because of these fertilizers, because of these herbicides, because of these pesticides, So use uncontrolled use, meaning that we are not saying that you do not use these fertilizers. Yes, go ahead and use them, but use them in a controlled manner. Use them in a controlled way. So you don't have to use them so oftenly, neither should you use them too much. If you use them too much of it, then it will end up polluting the rivers. And when it pollutes the rivers, then all aquatic animals will end up dying, and that water will become impure. Cause of what we call acid rains, acid rain, acid rain, acid rain, acid rain. Now, when you move to an industrialized town, say like Nairobi or Thika, these are towns with so many industries. Now, these industries, they emit gases into the two gases, the sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide. Now, when this sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide mix in the air, they form what we call, and when the condensation of rain takes place in the air, in the clouds, meeting with the gases that have been emitted by these industries, they'll form what we call an acid rain. The rain that will be falling will be acidic in nature. Now, being acidic in nature, it falls on buildings, say like the iron sheet, it will end up corroding the iron sheet. And that's why probably it informs to why the iron sheet in industrialized town, they normally get corroded very fast as compared to iron sheets that are away from town, where we don't have these industries. Now, when I'm looking at this, when I'm looking at the acid rain that's emitted that's formed after the emission of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide, the rain that forms, it's also not good for human consumption. Probably that's why people in Nairobi, they do not drink rainwater because it's full of acidic. It's full of acid. But when you go to places where they're very interior of country, then you'll find that rainwater, it's very fresh and good for consumption. Good for consumption. Now, let's look at effects of water pollution. Effects of water pollution. Effects of water pollution. Effects of water pollution. So remember, in causes of water pollution, we've talked about floods, we've talked about human and animal wastes, we've talked about oil spillage, we've talked about waste from industries, uncontrolled use of farm chemicals, and lastly, we talked about acid rains. So let's look at effects of water pollution. Now, effects of water pollution, what are they affecting? That's the big question. On which thing is this effect going to? And why should we have good water and unpolluted water? Now, there are so many things that this one affects. Let's first look at effect of water pollution on air plants. How are plants affected by water pollution? We all know that all plants need water for several reasons. They need water for germination, they need water for growth, they also need water in making their own food. And the process of making their own food is known as photosynthesis. So water pollution, one, affects absorption in the roots, affects absorption in the roots, affects absorption in the roots, because the roots will end up clogging, meaning that it cannot be able to absorb any nutrients from the roots. Number two, it affects what we call germination. Affects germination. Affects germination. Remember, when we are talking about germination, we say that water is key, it's vital, it's necessary for germination of seeds. So without this clean and unpolluted water, then it will be very hard for the seeds to germinate. It will be very hard for the seeds to germinate. Remember, we said that when you put, for instance, if you put a seed in freezed water or in cold water, it will not be able to germinate. Yes, it's water, but it's like it's polluted. It also affects what we call photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. And we say photosynthesis is the process by which plants make their own food. By which plants make their own food. So you can imagine plants that they cannot be able to make their own food, meaning that they will not have food because the process of making its own food has already been affected. Now, these acid rains also harm plants since plants cannot grow very well. This also harms acid rains. When it rains, it harms plants. These plants cannot also grow very well. So you find that plants that are growing in waters that are acidic in nature, they end up being harmed. they'll not grow to the required standards. Now, those ones were plants. Now, let me look at these effects of water pollution on animals. Effects of water pollution on animals. On animals. Effects of water pollution on animals. Now, animals, it's you and me. Animals, it's you and me, and the other living animals, the mammals, the fish, reptiles, amphibians, and other invertebrates. You know them. The birds, all of these ones are animals. Now, in class 6, we learned about waterborne diseases. So, waterborne diseases are diseases caused or are related to water. So if this water is polluted, one, it will cause diseases. And you remember the diseases that we talked about. We talked about cholera, talked about dysentery, talked about bilharzia, talked about typhoid. All these ones are diseases that are caused by water that's polluted. So water that's polluted will cause diseases. Cause water-borne diseases like typhoid, cholera, bilharzia. Typhoid,